Every time things get bad within the UK, the same pattern repeats. People get angry, look for an alternative, and suddenly a new based party or leader appears, promising to fix everything. They talk tough on immigration, they wave the flag, they attack the left, and then nothing really ever changes. This isn't by accident, it's the centre-right doing exactly what it's designed to do, being complete and utter containment for people's anger. Today, we're breaking down what the centre-right actually is, how to spot it every single time, and why real change will never come without serious sacrifice. The centre-right is not your friend. It's not a genuine alternative to the Uni Party, it's not nationalist, it is just basically a safety valve, a controlled pressure released designed to capture nationalist anger and water it down, and steer it back into the same system. Whether it's the Tories, Reform UK, Restore Britain, or whatever comes next, the goal is the same: stop real, uncompromising nationalism from ever taking power. In today's video, we're also going to share exactly how to identify the centre-right grifting, and why building something that actually works will demand proper sacrifice for those who want to see Britain survive and succeed in the future. So what exactly is the centre-right? The centre-right is not right-wing in any meaningful sense. It is a managed opposition that accepts the fundamental premise of the system: mass immigration, multiculturalism, globalism, and a demographic transformation of Britain, while pretending to oppose the West's excesses. Its job is to give frustrated native Britons somewhere to vent without ever threatening the real power structure. It talks about controlling borders, but never commits to stopping immigration or evading replacement. It complains about work nonsense, but refuses to confront the demographic and cultural changes that made work possible in the first place, through Marxist postmodernism, and also its foundations with not just only with Judaism, but also to do with how it's deep-seated into the universities, and as well other parts of the public service, including the virtue signalling with the police with LGBT and pride flags, as well as also to do with the NHS, with the hiring DEIs, with the doctors, and also to do with them also virtue signalling on Pride Month, with to do with branding their vehicles in shiny pink different types of colours. It promises to put Britain first, while staying loyal to the City of London and the same economical model that hollowed out working class communities. The centre-right exists to make sure nothing fundamentally ever changes. So how exactly do you spot the centre-right grift, supposedly? Well, here are actually very consistent red flags that appear every single time. Vague policies with no real numbers or timelines. They'll say they'll reduce immigration or deport illegals, but never commit to actual repatriation or hard cash that would stop replacement. That includes someone like with Steve Laws saying that he wants his 7-stepping stone plan, and then reduced it to 5 steps, which was a very odd thing for him to do. Including like with Rupert trying to say that he'll solve immigration, but then backtracking in interviews and saying that he never wanted to deport illegals in the first place, or even illegals. They attack the left, but never the system itself. They'll call out Keir Starmer and call him, in quote, a wanker, or even work councils. But they won't say the entire post-war consensus on immigration and multiculturalism was a mistake. They distance themselves from extremes. Any mention of ethnonationalism, remigration, or putting native Britons first get called deeply offensive or unhelpful. They chase respectability and media approval. They spend more time trying to look reasonable to the establishment than actually delivering for their voters. And you see this like with, for example, Nigel Farage, with to do with his whole shtick with saying that, mass deportations are, in quote, an impossibility. Then immediately backtracks to try and be a more safer alternative with to do with mainstream media, which we all know is controlled by a certain group of individuals. And then all of a sudden, with his backtracking, then starts saying, oh, in quote, white lives matter, after the Henry Newer case that happened in the UK. It's all just pandering and virtue signalling to the media. Even with someone like with Kemi Badenoch, even counter-signalling with Nigel Farage, is all a bit of the same part of the system, where it's pumped and promoted, whether that's on YouTube or even within the mainstream media, all shown as proper containment, where they don't address the actual key issue. They have no serious plan for demographic change. They might talk about birth rates or integration, but they refuse to acknowledge Britain is on track to become a white minority country within our lifetimes. They keep the same donor class and economic model. The same people who funded the Tories and New Labour are often hovering around those or these new alternatives. If several of these signs are actually even seen, you could tell that it's a centre-right controlled opposition. People will always wonder why the centre-right will never actually require any sacrifice, and the reason why they will actually never deliver it. If you want real growth, the centre-right fails because it offers comfort instead of sacrifice. It will always default back to the same conservatism, the same with the voter. The voter will look at the ballot box and always default back to safe conservatism instead of real genuine nationalism. They will always pick something safe. What normies do at the ballot box is that they will always vote for something that they intend or want to do. They never look at the actual policies. Instead, they rely on soundbitism rather than actual sacrifice. It promises easy wins, respectability, and quick electoral success without ever asking its supporters to give up anything. Real growth, whether that's building lasting political power, reversing demographic decline, or restoring a national culture. Like with Britain before, it was built from the ground up and has always required sacrifice, whether that's through the Victorian era and also to do with the industrialisation. Whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing with to do with how boats or airplanes have made it easier for immigrants to actually travel and be able to get into the UK, it has always required some type of sacrifice. History shows us that this is very clear. Every serious movement that achieved lasting change did so because people were willing to pay a price. Lost jobs, broken relationships, social ostracism, financial hardship, and years of thankless work with no guaranteed victory. They didn't chase the next election cycle or media approval. They thought in decades, not manifestos. They built communities, preserved identity, raised families with purpose, and accepted that the road would be long and difficult. If you look at any of how real mass immigration was successful in the context of European colonisation, some of the brown minds will say this is bad. But if you look at when the Europeans conquered America, for example, when it started to build itself up, it built itself up from elbow grease and hard work. Through decades of building up systems, not just also to do with law and legality, but also to do with eventually how it got sold out and what ended up going into what it is now, which is just a husk for Zionism. The centre-right offers the opposite. It tells people they can have everything without giving up anything. It tells them they can win without sacrifice, that respectability matters more than truth. And the short-term popularity is the same as long-term power. Like I said, or even quoted someone like with George Lincoln Rockwell, conservatives only care about their houses and juicy jobs rather than real sacrifice. This is why it always collapses or betrays its supporters. Real nationalism demands something different. It requires people who are willing to sacrifice comfort, status, and easy victories for something bigger than themselves. Without that willingness, we keep getting the same cycle of hurt, betrayal, and decline. The centre-right isn't broken, it's working exactly how it was intended, to keep real change from ever happening by offering the illusion of progress without the cost. Every movement that refused to ask for sacrifices failed. Every movement that demanded it has had its chance. So anyway guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video about me talking about the centre-right grift and what it is by definition. Because obviously nowadays that nationalism is kind of just a word that's thrown around, including like calling someone like Tommy Robinson and then quote nationalist, when obviously, for example, real ethnonats like us call ourselves ethnonats to basically distinguish ourselves from civic nationalists, where basically what they do is they're basically just a hollowed out, watered down version. And you see this comparison like what I talked about in my video Critiquing Restore Britain, where basically you look at something like with who's involved and you look at what it's built on foundations are actually off. Like including like with Rupert Lowe, where his foundations are basically just like Tory Zionism, and people will just not see through the clear bullshit, and you can see through the grift. And obviously, like I said, they've changed a lot of their policies, and you can even see like this with like something like the reform. The constant contradictions with to do with the Tories, saying that they just want a safe alternative with, in quote, trying to keep it 400,000 a year letting it into the UK through just legal means, or even trying to, in quote, stop the boats with trying to get the military involved. And you need you never see these people actually do anything. Now, I'm not saying that you have to be like Superman and fly around to the air 3 times to try and go back in time to try and actually stop mass immigration. But if you see how the system works and how it's designed, whether that's financially, technologically, or even society, you can see the brainwashing really happen. And the problem is when people get wrapped up in safety valve operations, whether that's restore or reform, and obviously people will say that I'm just being negative or backpedaling. But the reason why I have to emphasise this point so much about the Tory safety valve operations is because people just fall for them every single time. This is why people get the mean fell for it again award, because people just cannot see through people's bullshit and lies. I've been doing this for many years now. I've seen movements come and go, not just even in the past with other people that are way more experienced than me, but I've seen people who are proper genuine people that actually want to be in politics and actually want to do something, but they just get wrapped up in Tory safety valve operations. And whether they're basically paid off as like an actor or they're just very, very incompetent, and, trying to name names, but I will just say this, that a lot of people in politics, especially in the right wing, are basically cowardly and suspicious, where basically, it's very homosexual with all the energy and all the gay energy that you get off these people. And people will probably wonder what I mean by that. Well, you notice that where they all act tough, but they end up becoming very closeted. Maybe someone like with Nick Fuentes that I've seen, but yeah, you just start to see that this is just kind of not just like a part of the fake right, but when you see the centre right cooperate with neo-Nazis and, civic nationalism, not a proper ethnonationalist, and also to do with the, in quote, far right, and also to do with other people like Antifa and Hurt and Hate, you can sort to see the slow connections. And people will call you a conspiracy theorist or paranoid, but when you actually look at something and you take a step outside of the box of the game you're in, you can slowly see all of this, as you see it really unfold. It's like taking a red pill and exiting the Matrix, and then taking a black pill and seeing what the system actually is. You see it from what itself. And you've seen all of these surveillance systems that they're trying to build, like with Palantir, having access to NHS records, which you think, why is an American company trying to basically merge with UK records? People think, it's doing it for our benefit. The same with like Elon Musk, with also to do with JD Vance, even though they're basically virtually Zaya puppets or Zybox, pretty much, essentially, like to do with Elon Musk trying to put a microchip in your brain. And you sort of see this comparison between politics and conspiracy. It goes conspiracy theory, conspiracy truth. And a lot of people don't like me talking about the conspiracy stuff, but I think it is really important to emphasize about, de facto, who benefits. Who actually benefits from creating these evil, corrupt systems, whether you think it's Jeffrey Epstein with the Jews or, other people that are involved, maybe some like China or Russia, maybe they're just boogeymans for the West, I don't know. But anyway, I don't want to end this on a conspiracy theorist rant, but I guess what I'm trying to say is that don't get wrapped up in the centre-right movements and watch out for basically all these people counter-signaling each other. You'll start to notice the connections between them all. And as well, if you want to go and link in the description below with links to my other channels and Discord as well.